and gentlemen, and welcome to the 13th Annual Kudu Awards. Well, those are the 50 shades of green to revive and inspire us. I don't know about the 50 shades of gray. I've never experienced them, but this I have. My name is Ike Patla, and we are here at the Oscars of the Conservation World, which are hosted by the South African National Parks. This is a body charged with the management of a national park system which represents indigenous fauna, flora, landscape, and associated cultural heritage of South Africa. And these awards are hosted in partnership with First National Bank and Total SA. But before we get to the formalities, let's go through the safety briefing from CSIR. Refilwe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the evacuation coordinator in the ICC. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please note that the alarm will sound throughout the building. Trained responders will come to give instructions of evacuation. Please stay calm. Take only belongings you can carry with you. Walk in an orderly manner. Responders will lead you to an emergency exit, then to an assembly point. Please do not return to the building unless you are told to do so by trained responders. Floor plans are available throughout the whole building in the foyer. Emergency evacuation plans are available in the venues as well, even in the entrances over here by the bathrooms. The restrooms that we have allocated for you for tonight are through the tunnels. There is one to your right-hand side as you go out of the tunnel, and another one to your left-hand side. The smoking areas as well are throughout where you entered by the reception area. There's an allocated area there for you as well to use for your smoking area. We have a Wi-Fi as well available for you to use. There is no password required for you. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you, Refilwe. The Kudu Awards are meant to honor external stakeholders who contribute towards conservation, but also to acknowledge the important role played by employees who enable SANParks to fulfill its mandate. These are the people who make the organization the premier conservation agency on the continent and one of the best in the world. Tonight, every nominee is a celebrant, and we wish them the best of luck. To get the formalities going, and to formally welcome each and every one of you, please help me welcome to the podium our host for this evening, the Chief Executive Officer of South African National Parks, Mr. Fundisile Mketeni.
Thank you very much, Braik, Program Director. It is indeed the Oscars of conservation. We converge each and every year to honor those who are contributing to the cause. To the chair of SANParks, who's with us today, and all other board members of this organization. Our sponsors, FNB and Total CEOs, CEO of FNB, Public Sector Banking, Jose Ledimo and your team. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. The Managing Director and the CEO of Total South Africa, Mr. Pierre Sachet and your team. I know you brought along your wife. You are welcome. Friends from the security cluster that is working with us, CEOs from different public entities, especially in this sector. I see here the CEO of SANBI and the CEO of SA Tourism and other CEOs, national departments that are joining us tonight. I see the Deputy DG from the National Department of Tourism. Shamila, thank you very much for the partnership, especially for investments in our new activity hubs in our national parks. Colleagues from the Department of Environmental Affairs, Conservation and Tourism Sector Associates, South African National Parks Executive, our honorary rangers, the volunteer group, business leaders, the royalties and community leaders, friends from the media, Kudu Awards finalists, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. Good evening. Once again, I welcome you to the Oscars of Conservation World, the annual Kudu Awards, where SANParks recognizes the contribution of its employees, partners, and stakeholders towards retaining its position as a leader in conservation in the country, in the sub-region, in the continent, and indeed in the world. We also take this opportunity every year, ladies and gentlemen, to acknowledge the contribution of people and organizations that contribute directly and indirectly in the protection of South Africa's natural and cultural heritage. Without your support and contribution, our ability to fulfill our mandate would no doubt be weakened and compromised. It is not an easy task to manage a system of national parks in the 21st century. As we speak, ladies and gentlemen, we are capable of managing 67% of the conservation estate of government in our country. That is 4 million hectares in totality, an estate that we are constantly seeking to expand, research, mainstream, driven by the need to conserve a wide variety of species and ecosystem in this expansive country of ours. This work is a contribution of SANParks to the provision of ecosystem services to the people of South Africa and also to the livelihoods. They call it nature's contribution to people. You cannot detach people from nature. We have at the heart of our success a world-renowned team of scientists and conservationists that ensure that our status of being at the cutting edge of conservation practice, both as an organization and as a country, continues to grow. We therefore increasingly finding our skills and technical knowledge in demand across the Africa region and the world. This year has been a number of partnerships across the continent being solidified, and through these partnerships, SANParks, in working with the Department of Environmental Affairs, will increasingly play a conservation diplomacy role throughout the continent and some of the countries in the world. Like, for example, our partnership with some of the South American countries because of the similar history in terms of conservation to its people. We just signed a memorandum of agreement with Colombia. We are developing one with Argentina. We are expected to fulfill this mandate because South Africa, as a mega-diverse country, should continue to lead in the conservation sphere. A new era is dawning, ladies and gentlemen, and these are exciting times which will see SANParks broaden its conservation footprint by extending a hand of support to other protected area management authorities in Africa and beyond through capacity building, skills development and transfer, re-establishing new wildlife population in Africa, amongst others. As the old adage goes, charity begins at home. So as we broaden our influence to beyond our shores, we are in parallel ensuring that our impact on South African society reverberates at a higher pitch. I'm happy to say, to this end, ladies and gentlemen, we have elevated the status of our socio-economic development department to form the third leg of SANParks' core function along conservation and tourism. This means that socio-economic development will no longer be a byproduct of our conservation and ecotourism activities. It will instead be driven aggressively and strategically to continue towards achieving government's mandate on radical socio-economic development. In the coming year, a number of initiatives will be unveiled which aim to incorporate communities, particularly those adjacent to our parks. In the marine and wildlife economies, we want to emphasize on this, as well as tourism value chain through the supplier and enterprise development. Our plans, ladies and gentlemen, are ambitious. We are committed to making an indelible mark and sustainable shift in the lives of these communities. We will start tracking impact of our contribution to the livelihoods and the economy of the country so that we can report with confidence. This means that establishing a reliable impact tracking tool for SANParks. For us, It is not a buzzword. It is about empowerment. It is about breaking the poverty cycle. It is about creating jobs. It is about measurable and direct flow of financial benefits from the park activities to the broader community. SANParks has committed to donating and loaning wildlife over the years to carefully vetted, historically disadvantaged individuals and communities. This is an existing project that seeks to contribute to the transformation of the wildlife economy industry by facilitating and enabling ownership of wildlife by these communities. We believe that this project will contribute significantly to the changing the profile of the game and wildlife industry value chain. Let us watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. Over the past year, SANParks officially welcomed a key stakeholder and partner into its fold, the Kruger National Park Restitution Beneficiaries, popularly referred as the Kruger land claimants. Our new stakeholders comprise of 6 communities spread from the north to the south of Kruger National Park across the Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces. As part of the Restitution Award, in partnership with the Department of Environmental Affairs and Rural Development, SANParks has developed and is the administrator of a beneficiation scheme that seeks to identify commercial opportunities in ecotourism and the wildlife economy, both within and outside the park. The execution of this scheme will ensure direct and indirect benefits flow to the claimants' communities. As you can discern, SANParks is embarking on a new trajectory. These audacious plans cannot succeed without your support. Our employees, our strategic partners, and our media partners are key to this success. At every turn, at every chapter, we will continue to pause and acknowledge your contribution in a variety of platforms, including this one, our Kudu Awards. We recognize tonight people who are driven by passion and fair degree of altruism in helping SANParks to continue to be a beacon of hope in the world of conservation, ecotourism, and socio-economic development. Many of our employees do not see their function as jobs or merely a means to put bread on the table. For most of us, working in SANParks is a vocation, a calling. We work in an environment that captures our hearts and minds. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a privilege that is not extended to many. A significant section of the employees of SANParks work in grueling conditions and yet wake up every day with a renewed sense of diligence, commitment, and perseverance. I would like to take this opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to particularly mention our Ranger Corps, the men and women who face daily trepidation in executing their duties, which have increasingly become about combating illegal wildlife trade. Poaching has become the biggest challenge in our conservation history. However, with the help of enforcement agencies, we are slowly reducing our exposure to these criminal forces. By no means in our war is over though. This is an onslaught that relies on intricate internal and external networks. We need strong partnerships to stop the scourge. As our Ranger Corps can only do so much, we cannot win the war without the corporate South Africa, international donors, and our neighboring communities. Many of our stakeholders have heeded our call for assistance. We urge you to help us spread the word. Assist us to widen the net of SANParks supporters, to help with resources to fight this onslaught. Help us elevate this matter to a national priority where the average South African is sensitized to the level of the scourge, sensitized to the need to make a contribution, no matter how small, in protecting our natural heritage and our future. Program Director, plans such as the Kudu Awards allow us to thank and acknowledge the members of SANParks family, those who are in the trenches, the faces of organization, in the hospitality role of the organization, those behind the scenes maintaining our intensive infrastructure plant. These are cogs that keep the wheel grinding. The average public interaction with a SANParks employee often excludes key units in this machinery that we manage. These include our environmental crime investigative unit, our veterinary services and wildlife services people, and our scientific services people. These often unseen faces not only keep but are virtually the definition of SANParks. It is through them that we seem to so effortlessly fulfill our core mandate. I want to thank you all. For us to be gathered here tonight, acknowledging the good work of our colleagues in the culmination of months of hard work from SANParks staff who work tirelessly behind the scenes to make the Kudu Awards function an outstanding success year after year. In addition, there is a dedicated team of men and women who volunteer their services as adjudicators of these awards. I would like to extend a warm hand of gratitude to them all. Not everyone here today will walk away with an award, but to us, both the finalists and the winners are equally important. Both categories of individuals embody the mission, ethos, and values of SANParks that center on managing a sustainable national park system that is connecting society at large. By virtue of being nominated, I recognize all finalists as winners tonight and thank you for your effort and recognize your hard work. Our stakeholders and partners, welcome and thank you for all your continued support of the vision of the organization. To our sponsors, Total South Africa, First National Bank, we extend a warm welcome to you this evening and acknowledge your unwavering support of SANParks over the decades. May our relationship continue to greater heights. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I trust that tonight will not be only a celebratory but informative. I hope that as we recognize the performance and effort of these worthy men and women, we will in turn renew our commitment to conservation and wake up tomorrow invigorated to tackle the challenges that face us with increased vigor. You are welcome. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks to the Chief Executive Officer of the South African National Parks, Mr. Fundisile Mketheni. And those audacious plans means there's quite a lot of work that needs to be done. But I guess on the other hand, they also inspire confidence that this is an organization that is worth working for. I hope you are all feeling at home now, and I would like to ask my colleagues, I can't recognize some of them because we are always in our uniform. If some of them can just stand up from the parks because you all look so stunning. I'd like to recognize, I saw Freaky somewhere, or I thought it was his twin. If you can all stand up, the colleagues from the parks. You all look so stunning, wonderful, and you are welcome. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this event would not be possible without solid partnerships. And one of the big sponsors for many years has been First National Bank. And to tell us more about their involvement with SANParks and the Kudu Awards, please help me to welcome onto the stage the Chief Executive Officer of FNB Public Sector Banking, Mr. Khosi Lidimu.
Thank you very much, Program Director, SANParks Board Chairperson, Ms. Joanne Yawich, members of the SANParks Board present here tonight, SANParks CEO, Mr. Fundisile Mketheni, Total SA MD, Mr. Pierre Yves Sachet, finalists here tonight, DG of the National Department of Tourism, Mr. Victor Tarache, CEO of SANBI, CEO of SA Tourism, CEO of Provincial Tourism Authority, Limpopo, CEO of Tourism Mpumalanga, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, and all protocol observed. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for honoring us with your presence this evening. I'm quite intrigued about the process of working towards a goal, and coming from a financial services background, I truly value and understand what can be delivered from investing time, money, and effort into this project. It simply means you commit to a particular goal over a set time frame and work towards achieving it. For more than a decade, FNB has partnered with SANParks to celebrate and honor people who have dedicated themselves to preserving South Africa's natural heritage. We are here once again because as FNB, we share a common vision with SANParks. We want to see South Africa's national environment remain intact and unblemished so that it is available for future generations to enjoy. So year after year, we invest time and energy to ensure that South Africa recognizes and honors those who are at the forefront of protecting our environment. What we aim to achieve in the long term is a broader understanding of the socio-economic impact of having a well-functioning environmental ecosystem. This will take time to accomplish, so we have to invest a considerable amount of time as well. It's been 13 years running since the inception of these awards, and I must say, we have struck the right chord and are slowly sensitizing our communities about why they need to care for the environment. The fact that year after year, there are people that we recognize for their hard work in conservation means all efforts invested are paying off. When people are recognized for the work they do, they tend to be encouraged to do more, and so the word spreads. I would call that a good return on investment as a banker. Ladies and gentlemen, challenges remain and continue to stare us in the face, but we will continue doing the work. This is far too important an endeavor for the country to ignore. But most importantly, I would like to congratulate all the nominees for the amazing work they do. And I want to say to them, we recognize the hard work. We are aware of the sacrifices you make and would like to urge you to continue doing the great work. I want to thank SANParks CEO Fundisile Mkheteni and his dedicated team for inviting FNB to be a partner in this amazing initiative. Tonight is not about winners and losers. Instead, it's about reminding ourselves what we are capable of when we form partnerships. It's time to reflect on achievements and chart the way forward. Thanks and have a good evening tonight.
Thank you to the CEO of FNB Public Sector Banking, Mr. Kgosi Ledumo, and we hope that this partnership will continue to grow strong. Another of our longtime partners and sponsor is Total SA. They are represented here today by the CEO and Managing Director, Mr. Pierre-Yves Sachet. It is his first Kudu Award appearance. Let's put a warm South African welcome for Mr. Pierre-Yves Sachet.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, all protocols duly observed. I'm the third speaker. It's a very difficult position. Therefore, I will keep my speech short and to the point. I'm very proud and happy to be standing in front of you tonight as the CEO for Total in South Africa and also in the region. And I'm very honored to be invited to this extremely important evening. This special opportunity is, as it was said before, a dedicated moment to acknowledge those that are helping to conserve South Africa's natural landscape and therefore heritage, and to preserve this for those who will come after us. And this is precisely part of the 4 pillars. It's one of the 4 pillars that Total is developing in its corporate social responsibility worldwide. It's protection of heritage, patrimoine, as we say in French, and clearly the natural landscape environment is just part of it. I would like, before anything, to congratulate all of the nominees here this evening by being nominated, obviously. It's already clear that you have played your part in this conservation and heritage in South Africa. Thank you for that, and I propose a round of applause for all the nominees. I said I would keep it short, so I will walk the talk. My colleague from FNB is the proud sponsor for more than 10 years of this Kudu Awards. For Total, it's only the 6th year, if I'm not completely wrong. But we have been the very proud sponsor and partner for SANParks for the last almost 60 years. We will be celebrating next year the 60th anniversary. And I was talking to your CEO before this event, saying that honestly, I've made some research. I've not found any partnership in the world that has lasted 60 years. So. But we will speak a lot about this next year. I think it's, for wedding 60 years, it's something like a diamond or even better than this. So it's not in front of you that I will need to stress the importance of operating sustainably and to conserve our natural patrimoine and heritage. It's a challenge. It's a challenge that, as an oil industry, we face as well. We are very much committed towards facing the challenge of climate change. What we do together is also part of it. It's not necessarily the core of our action in terms of climate change, but clearly it is part of this because it's our responsibility to make sure that our children find a world in which they can still live. Our ambition in the region, just for those who don't know it, Total has been in Africa for around 100 years. We are in close to 45 countries operating in the country, in the continent. We have been in South Africa since 1954, and we are here to stay, unlike some others. And we are here to stay for another 60 or 70 years, and therefore we can clearly reconduct our partnership for another 60 years. In conclusion of this very short address, I would like to acknowledge the panel of judges. It's a difficult task to select and to choose when you have plenty of good nominees to award. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your commitment to keep the high standards of the awards. To the nominees, I know that for you it's an important evening. But even if it's an important evening, it will always be less important than the efforts that you are producing all year long in doing your work. Thank you for that. For Total South Africa and for our partner, First National Bank, it's also an important evening. We hope that you will enjoy this evening and that you will see us again next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre, and we wish you all the best and hope your stay here in South Africa will be a successful one and a prosperous one. Remember, if you need a safari, we are just a phone call away. And it's the 6th year, so 13 is also coming, as with the 60 years that has come and gone. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, your starters will be served, and I'm going to call upon Soweto Opera Quadro to come and give us the music as you enjoy the starters. Thank you. it is an honor and a privilege to invite tonight's keynote speaker. And that keynote speaker is the chairperson of the SANParks board, Ms. Joanne Yawich.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of myself and my fellow board members, and there are quite a lot of SANParks board members scattered throughout this hall this evening, it is a huge honor to be able to address you this evening. I think that we've heard, as the other speakers have started their speeches, they've acknowledged a number of the dignitaries in the audience, and I want to do it in a slightly different way, because really the Kudu Awards are here above all, I think, to recognize the SANParks staff. And so I think the most important people here this evening are the staff of the organization, and we really hope that this is an evening where we can pay real tribute to the incredibly hard work and incredible levels of dedication and commitment of everybody who works for SANParks. So therefore, I think that certainly for the board is what we see the Kudu Awards as being about, firstly to recognize the staff of this organization and the contribution that they make not only to the country, but that they make to the world. Because really the biodiversity that this organization protects in this country, it's an international asset. Secondly, the Kudu Awards, really we recognize and acknowledge our partners. And I think that we've spoken a bit about some of our partners tonight, but I want to talk a little bit more about the people here this evening. Firstly, our private sector partners and our funders, Total, who has this extraordinary record of nearly 60 years of partnership, and a more recent partner, but I think a partner who's really walked away with us in the form of FNB, and we really appreciate that. And I think it is our hope as a board in SANParks that in years to come, it's not only going to be Total and FNB here, but we will bring a much greater representation from the private sector into contributing to SANParks, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I think thirdly, our partners in government and in other public entities, and I'm particularly pleased this evening that we have both the CEO of SANBI, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, as well as the CEO of South African Tourism here, because in many ways they represent the core pillars of what it is that SANParks does. We protect the country's biodiversity, and we provide a hugely important tourism asset to the country, and in that sense, I think having them here really does help to close a circle. As well as then the government departments that work with us all the time. Firstly, our own mother department, the Department of Environmental Affairs, and welcome to all of the officials from DEA who are here this evening. Secondly, people from the Department of Tourism, as well as our colleagues, I want to say our comrades in the security cluster, the people who are here from the military and from the South African Police Service, who in the context of the threat that we face from poaching and the constant incursions into our park, have become partners who walk with us on a daily basis in very difficult and dangerous conditions. So welcome to all of you. But beyond that, there are many people here from non-governmental organizations that work very closely with SANParks at a range of levels. There are people here from the media, and it's absolutely essential for us that the work that SANParks does receives as much airtime as possible. There are people here from a range of constituencies, women's organizations, youth organizations, and then people from the communities adjacent to and the communities with whom we partner around our parks. So really this in one room, I think, represents the world of conservation in South Africa. And it's an enormous privilege to be able to bring everybody here at least once a year who are united by a common commitment to maintain our countries and extend our countries and expand our country's conservation estate, and to contribute to the maintenance of our incredible natural heritage and the diversity of flora and fauna that has made us one of the world's mega diverse countries, to bring everybody together in one room, and particularly to do so with a room that is filled with people who are so passionate about their contribution to conservation and to ecotourism wherever they are working from. And I think it is that common passion and common commitment that really is, I think, what makes this the Oscars of the conservation movement. Our board has been in place for nearly 3 years now. The term of the board is 3 years. So thinking about talking here tonight, it struck me that in many ways, for this board, this is in many ways a farewell. And I think it is because early next year, the minister will appoint a new board. Maybe some of the people will be the same, but the board will not exist in the way that it does at the moment. And I thought it might be a good opportunity to talk about some of the things that over the last couple of years have been important to us as a board. And I think that the CEO did touch on them. But I think there are essentially three things that we've focused our minds on. And the first has been really trying to make sure that we do our core conservation job as well as we can. Ensuring that we have the people, the resources, the capacity, and the management systems in place that mean that that conservation mandate is carried out in our 21 parks and in the areas adjacent to them and in the partnerships that we have in the best possible way. And that we are doing the job, the core job of protecting, of ensuring that the protected areas are maintained for this and future generations in the best possible way. I think that really has been the one core focus of what we do. I think our second core focus has really been on the issue of tourism. And for those of you who don't know, SANParks generates around 80% of its own revenues. Only about 20% of the funds that we get are from a government grant. And the very vast majority of that money comes from the tourism offerings that we have, as well as from the tourism partnerships we have, from the concessions where people have lodges on our land or where people are running restaurants or shops within the parks. And it is, we think, an increasingly important, not only in monetary terms, but an increasingly important part of the work that we do. And over the last couple of years, I think there have been two things that we've been looking at. And the one is really about how do we make the SANParks, the parks, something that all South Africans want to visit. Everybody knows about the parks, and everybody feels that here is somewhere where I want to go to. And historically in South Africa, as we all know, protected areas have been seen as the preserve of white people and people with money. And so a lot of effort has gone in right over the last 10 or 20 years, but in the last couple of years, we've been looking with a renewed focus at how do we bring Black South Africans into the park, what kind of facilities do we need, what kind of tourism offerings do we need. And linked to that, we've also been looking at the question of how do we bring young people into the parks. Every year we have a program where we bring children into the park so that they can begin to understand and to develop an appreciation of nature and of the fauna and flora that is in the parks. But more than that, we want our millennials, we want the generation of young people in their 20s and their 30s to see the parks as an attractive place to come to. And I see Hapil Weselo sitting over there, and she's been doing a lot of work to try and look at how do we generate the kinds of tourism products that are going to really mean that our national parks are people's parks. So I think that's the second thing that, as a board, we've been very concerned about. I think the third thing the CEO also touched on, and that is the issue of socio-economic beneficiation. Our parks sit in some of the country's poorest areas. They're based in rural areas. They're based in areas where unemployment is incredibly high, where you've probably got anything up to 70 or 80% of youth who don't have any kind of gainful activities to do on a daily basis. And really, in our analysis, it's one of the things that really does fuel things like the poaching crisis that we have, because there is what seems to be very easy money that can flow into very impoverished communities if young men get involved in poaching or start working for syndicates. And so for us, I think there are two sides to it. The first is to say that the parks offer a huge economic opportunity. It's the question of employment in the parks. It's the question of the fact that people need to be fed. There's a whole set of construction that happens in the parks all of the time. There's a major maintenance operation that happens. There's a value chain and a supply chain for the organization that is SANParks. And what we've been trying to do is to say, how do we take that opportunity and turn it into something that in a very substantive way starts to improve the lives of the people who live in the areas around the parks? And how do we use the resource that is the parks to start to generate sustainable economic opportunities in those communities? And that is something that it's not an easy thing to do. It's a long walk in order to develop that kind of economic opportunity. But we think that there is much more to be done than we have in the past, and that with a concerted effort, we can really start to change a whole lot of patterns, historical patterns in those rural areas, including patterns of ownership, patterns of control. We would like to see many more of our tourism concessions being concessions that are owned by Black people and by people from the communities around those parks. And we see that there is a huge empowerment opportunity that we've got to be able to take up in a very serious kind of way. So I think that is the third thing that the board has really focused on as something where we hope that over the last 3 years we've laid a very solid basis for us to be able to step up to a new level the initiatives around socio-economic beneficiation. And that also obviously links to the land claims. I think it is clearly a terribly shameful part of our history that so many of our parks sit on land that was acquired through the forceful dispossession of communities. And as SANParks, we recognize in a very fundamental way that the question of redress goes without saying, and that once through the legal processes restitution has happened, that we are in a long-term ongoing partnership with the communities who have got their land back, whether they are living on that land, whether they are in a lease arrangement with us, whether we are in a cooperative park arrangement, or whether the communities are accessing benefit streams from the parks. We think it is an ongoing, forever partnership that we must now also build into something that becomes a source of growth and opportunity, both for ourselves and for those communities, as part of a national effort to ensure that the injustices of the past are redressed, and that out of that we create new opportunities for the future. Lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the people in SANParks. I think that's something that everybody on this board, and I'm sure in previous boards, has been struck by, is the incredible commitment of the people who work for SANParks. I think it's been said at these awards before, and I'm sure it will be said again, that people don't leave SANParks. As an organization, what's it called, a public entity, SANParks has a turnover rate of around 2%, I think. So only about 2% of, on an annual basis, only about 2% of the people who work in SANParks leave. And that is because I think that, as was said earlier, working for SANParks is not about simply a job. It's a vocation, it's a lifestyle, it's a commitment, and it is something that we have understood that the staff in this organization do, because it gives them a purpose. Their purpose in life is to contribute to the work that the organization does. And it is a completely inspiring to be part of an organization where pretty much anybody that you talk to is in the organization because they love their work so much, and because they feel so strongly about what the organization achieves, and because it is part of who they are. And I think that that really is the SANParks, is its people, and its people are absolutely passionately committed to the organization and to its mission. And I think that really is the strength of what we sit with in this room tonight. So I think, as I said, our board has been, our term is coming to an end towards the end of, in sort of early next year. And I think that this is really an opportunity for us to thank SANParks and its stakeholders. I think, speaking for all of us, it's been an extraordinary privilege and an honor to have been able to serve, to have been selected by the Minister to serve SANParks. We hope that we have served the organization in the way that we needed to. We hope that we've been able to support the CEO and his executive team. We hope that we've been able to pick up some of the issues that have caused problems to the staff of SANParks, or problems that have been difficult to resolve, and we hope that in some way that we've been able to help to address those. And we also hope that the work that we've done will lay a solid basis going forward. So we feel like we're a moment in time in an organization that has got a very long history. It's come a very long journey, and it's got a very long way to go. And we think that the strength of the organization and the strength of the work that we do lies in all of you here. And essentially, we want to thank you. So to SANParks and its stakeholders, you all do the most incredible work. You make the most amazing contribution to our country and to the world, and thank you for that.
Thanks to Ms. Yawich, the chairperson of the SANParks board. And that brings to a close tonight's formalities. And Ms. Yawich, we hope that as you go away from SANParks, you're not going to forget about us. You know the resources that we need, and that you will get to your corporate friends and tell them that there is an organization that I was serving in, and it needs your support. Thank you once again.